Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, or whichever time of the day you choose to watch this video. I hope I have met the proper greeting for that. My name is Miles Campson Sr. I'm actually going to be doing my History of Developing World final project on the developing country Nigeria. Please take a brief moment to review the agenda. We will be discussing a brief introduction of the country, some features about the country, then we'll go into the colonization of the country. We'll talk about the economy, talk about why it is a developing country, some of the roles that it played in the Cold War, some globalization traits that it shares as a country, and current development and challenges that the country is facing. And then we'll go into conclusion and we'll discuss, why I chose this country and what I think about it. Nigeria is located in the West African region. Population of about 188 million is actually referred to as the Giant of Africa. It's the seventh most populous in the world. It's kind of hard to consider when just in 1971 the populace was only at about 55 million. It's a huge jump for that country. The capital is Abuja. Official language is English, which basically comes from the British colonization. But there are about 500 other languages, the main languages being Hausa, Igbo, and Yoruba. There are about 500 different ethnic groups there. Main ones, again, with the languages that correlate is Hausa, Igbo, and Yoruba. Their government, they have a federal republic. Their independence is 1 October 1960. And their civil war began in 1967 to 1970. And the major religions, they are Christians and Muslims. They have a lot of different religions as well with their different ethnic groups, but the main ones are Christian and Muslims, and they're actually 50% of the country, like 50-50 right down the middle. The Christians are more so in the south, and the Muslims, who are mostly Sunni, are located in the northern regions of Nigeria. Colonization of Nigeria was of Great Britain, who had a mission, who wanted to halt all international traffic and slave trading throughout the Western African region. They governed Nigeria by a kind of indirect rule through their local leaders. Nigeria gained its independence 1 October 1960, which it took about 3 years to establish government as a federal republic and appointed its first president. Then Civil War began in 1967 through about 1970, and then a long period after murdering a few prime ministers, a military rule began, and then, praise God, democracy was born. Okay, now that the bloody part is over with their colonization and their civil war, let's talk about their economy. So, Nigeria's economy is the 20th largest in the world. It's Africa's largest economy. Their gross domestic product is ranked 30th in the world. They have an abundance of natural resources, and they have a huge stock exchange, which is the second largest in Africa. Theirs is located, it's called the Nigerian Stock Exchange, located in Lagos. Oil is a huge part of their economy. They're the 12th largest producer of petroleum, 8th largest exporter, and have the 10th largest proven reserves. It's a major money bank when it comes to their economy. Agriculture is also a huge part of their economy. About 30% of their population works in agriculture. Their biggest non-oil foreign exchange earners are cocoa and rubber. Other agriculture include beans, nut, plantain, rice, and things of that sort. There's a lot more. But overseas remittance is actually a huge part of their economy as well. It was recorded in 2007 that about $17.9 billion was sent back to Nigeria from residents who moved to different countries, mainly United States and England. That's a huge amount of money, and they certainly, I guess, believe in sending money back home, and that fuels that country's economy and puts all that money right into Nigeria. And services actually becoming a huge part of their economy. It's a really fast growing telecommunications market in the world. You know, Besides, we know usually when we get telemarketing calls or we're calling a company for any kind of tech support, most of the time it's going to India or Japan, and that's kind of what we're familiar with. But Nigeria has a huge telemarketing market growing, and that's a huge part of their economy as well. Now, you are probably wondering, like, with such a booming economy, how in the world can Nigeria be a developing country? Well, there are several factors that contribute to that. And we must remember also they just gained their independence in 1960, which is only about 60 years from now, which becoming a developed country takes a bit of time. Some of the contributing factors include, like right now, currently Nigeria's life expectancy rate is about 52 years old, whereas here in the U.S., the life expectancy you're expected to live up to 78 years old, and that's not even the highest. It's actually in an East Asian country called Macau, which your life expectancy is to live to 84. Then there's the infant mortality rate, which is about 8.4 deaths per 1,000 live births. In the U.S., it's 6.1 deaths per 1,000 births, which is not really a pretty number as well. But that certainly has to be improved before you could be, I guess, deemed a developed country. Poverty in this country, in Nigeria, is about 33%. That's a third of the population living in poverty, which has Africa's largest economy. The U.S. poverty rates are around about 14.5%, and that's following the depression or two recessions, I think is the right term to call it, that we had in previous years. Nigeria also has a struggling healthcare system. The lack of doctors, basically, most doctors, the highly skilled ones, they move to the U.S. and Europe to practice because, I mean, of more earning opportunities. So their healthcare system is not really ideal, which needs quite a bit of developing. They have really poor human rights. Um, Basically, mistreatment by like security forces, by the military. There's like arbitrary arrest, rape, torture, and all kind of degrading treatments of prisoners, detainees, and even suspects. People who haven't even been persecuted are subject to all of these harsh penalties. And then some of their harsh penalties include amputations, stonings, lashing, and long prison terms for things as small as alcohol consumption or homosexuality, infidelity, and theft. Even someone who witnesses a gay marriage, they will be sentenced to a minimum of 10 years. They are certainly at the bottom of a chain when it comes to human rights. And another thing that's really big factor in their development is the organized crime and the fact that how some of it is pretty much legal. There's a lot of drug trafficking going on. A lot of heroin comes out of Nigeria. Political violence. There's always corruption with the government ranks. And one of the organized crimes that I guess most of us probably would be familiar with is what they call bank fraud on 419, maybe more known as the Nigerian scan. Basically, we probably all got an email from some person in some bank of Nigeria who said that they need to transfer a lot of money into your account. You just give them a small amount of money, and they'll be sure to transfer it into your account, and you'll get a big piece of that money. We've all seen it. Hopefully, none of us fell for it, but it's certainly a big um, industry, I guess you can call it, in Nigeria. And if it ever happened to any of your friends, you could probably go to Nigeria and blame them and kick some butt for it. But they also have another contributing factor into them developing is they have a horrible waste management program, like industrial and domestic. They can't get trash off the street, and they can't stop putting pollution in the air. Their their footprint on the world is a nasty, dirty, filthy footprint as of right now, and it's something that they certainly have to work on. Their soil degradation, and they have 50% of the population in Nigeria don't have potable water, don't have sewer systems, and it's certainly something that this country is going to have to continue to work on. Development, though, has been hindered for years by different military rule, the corruption, and just pure mismanagement. Since their independence from Britain, they just haven't been able to get it right except the economy, which is booming and will look to continue to boom over the next few years. Okay, let's shift gears a bit. Let's talk about how Nigeria is affected by the Cold War. Many of us are familiar with the Cold War and how long it lasted and the struggle between the U.S. and the Soviet Union in their quest to gain ground or power per se. Nigeria is one of those countries that was caught in between that, which actually they kind of remained neutral, if that makes any sense. But there were a lot of interest in that country, basically because of their size, their population, their economic and military potential. And most of their foreign policy was focused on African unity, so it wasn't really in the interest of that country to choose a side. Although Nigeria did have better relations with the U.S. because of course, being colonized by Great Britain and speaking English, and some of the Western ideas that the U.S. had. They also had a common goal, and they wanted to end apartheid in South Africa. However, the U.S. did not back them in their civil war, whereas the Soviets did. The U.S. wouldn't give them weapons, but the U.S. still wanted oil. It was a big battle between the presidencies of Carter and Reagan, but if you really had to say which side Nigeria actually, I guess, played on, then it would most likely be the U.S. Because the U.S. did whatever they had to do to ensure that they kept their oil relations with Nigeria. Okay, now let's discuss the globalization of Nigeria. Which globalization is the process in which people, ideas, and goods spread throughout the world, spurring more interaction and integration between the world's cultures, governments, and economies. And Nigeria is no stranger to globalization. Their actually strong economy is due to the amount of globalization that they have in their culture. For one, like for instance, their economy, which is the booming factor of Nigeria, I guess, would be like 30% of Nigerians are employed in agriculture. It's almost the culture, like it's a life. If I mean, 1/3 of the population is going to be working in such a major driving force in the economy. And I mean, and they are the largest sub-Saharan African trade partner with the U.S. So they adopt a lot of qualities that are familiar with the Western country. Their education system, English is their official language, which they got from of course Great Britain and their colonization, and that really helps with their interaction with the Western companies and other English-speaking countries because it's their culture to speak English, even though they have over 500 languages in this one country of Nigeria. French is also a widely used language, which is not one of those 500s that the ethnic groups adopt, but French is a language that some of the surrounding countries that they interact with use. So it's very common in the education system to also not only see English but also French. Um, and then a big part of their globalization is their industrialization, where they actually get now into they've been getting into manufacturing for a few years now, but now they actually get into manufacturing like cars. They actually have a Nissan deal, which is probably pretty soon coming, but a lot of the countries are deciding they've always been for a while been building trucks, SUVs, and things of that sort. So they're very globalized, and it's actually part of their culture now to be an export for all other countries, which is why again their economy is just booming. Some more current events that have been happening recently that Nigeria has been working on, becoming a developed country. Some notable things I have listed below, which is their HIV and AIDS rate have been lowered to about 3.1%, which is a huge reduction. I mean, especially compared to neighboring countries such as Kenya and South Africa are still in double digits. Done a great job working on combating the spread of HIV and AIDS. They basically and they're at a point where they almost also eradicated polio. There was a report that came out in 2014 that they hadn't recorded a polio case in about 6 months. So it's actually a great advancement for human life expectancy, well-being, healthcare, and things of that sort. And in 2014 also there was an Ebola outbreak, which we knew about here in the U.S. But Nigeria was the first country to effectively contain and actually eliminate the threat, which was rampant in all of Western Africa. And those methods that Nigeria actually used were adopted by the U.S. to contain Ebola when it kind of came to the United States from people who had traveled in African countries. And more recently, also, they have become a member of the Convention of the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, known as the CEDAW. It's still a lot of huge issues, going on with discrimination against women in Africa, but they are a member of this convention and they do sit on the board, and they kind of try to work through a lot of the discrimination issues, such as like forced marriages, women being forced to marry under age 15 and things of that sort. Some of the challenges that Nigeria faces still in the near future or coming future is certainly in their increasing population. They have rapidly grown from 55 million in 1970s to 188 million in 2016. So a number that expected does nothing more, that expects only to just continue to grow. So it's something they'll have to certainly get a grip on and ensure that they have the resources to provide for their huge population. Poverty is also another challenge that they're facing. I mean, they have to figure out some way, with a third of the country being in poverty, a way to use their booming economy to support their own people. Another challenge would be sustaining legitimate government. It's been back and forth, between different corrupt leaders, and maintaining a legitimate government would allow some form of like safety and kind of calm in the country, to whereas human rights can be worked on and things of that sort. Another challenge, a huge challenge, is potable water, available potable water. Only about half of the population have water and like appropriate sanitation. So that's a huge thing. I mean, you can't expect people to live long without water. That's the basic element of life. And then the pollution is a huge challenge that they're faced with, especially increasing industrialization in their country. They have to leave a more clean, I guess, footprint across the world. There's a lot of pollution, and that's not only in the industry areas, but also in the civilian places where people live, with the trash and improper sanitation. So, in conclusion, I'm just going to talk about why I chose Nigeria as my country. And I guess the first reason would be, I guess, the most fun is the highly developing country. I don't know if that makes any sense. It does to me, but basically with such a strong economy, it can easily be perceived as, well, and no one would think in their right mind that Nigeria, that can't be a developing country. How is that possible? But it most certainly is. It still has a long way to go before it can be considered a developed country. And second, my origins actually are Yoruba. They come from Nigeria. My father was born in Lagos, Nigeria. He came to America and basically in search of education to go to school. But he passed when I was about 3 months, so I don't know much actually about my country, and I figured this project would be a chance for me to learn a little more about my origins and something about the country where my ancestry lies. Very near. I don't know if I should call it ancestry, because it's just one generation. But yeah, that was one of my interests. And then lastly, it's because globalization. I'm always on the fence about, if it's good, if it's bad, in our Western minds, a lot of people, we feel that globalization is definitely a good thing. And there are also a lot of radicals out there who believe globalization is terrible, and how, it can take away from the values of a certain, like, culture or ethnic group, or mostly religion. Um, but I believe globalization, it plays a part in why Nigeria's development, their economy is not moving as fast as their economy. I'm sorry if that makes any sense. Like, their development is not moving as fast as their economy. I think the country as a whole does not have an identity and are more focused on being compatible with other countries. I feel like, I mean, it's great. That's totally great for the economy, but harsh for the culture development. I kind of go back and forth on it. I mean, I don't if it's a bad thing or a good thing. But that's why I chose Nigeria. Um, Hopefully, I taught you something new about the country. I know I'm pretty sure I probably gave you a few new sayings, like highly developed, developing country. Take it for what it is and enjoy. If you have any questions, please reply and submit your questions, and I will certainly do my best to provide you with an answer. Thank you.